Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm the host of the Transformational Conversations podcast, and today I'm here with Natasha from the American Heart Association. And Natasha, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so just a little bit earlier, we were talking about how healing is not a destination, it's a journey. And I cut you off because I wanted to have it on the podcast. So I'd love to dive back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you've talked to me a lot about your journey as well, Jordan. And I really feel like when people begin that healing process and that healing journey, they're viewing it as a singular destination, right? It's like, I'm going to reach the top of Mount Everest. And once I'm there, I'm going to have everything figured out and I'm going to feel better. And then I think once you begin that healing journey, and this happened to me, and I think something similar happened to you as well, you realize that it's not about that singular destination, but it's about the journey. And it's about constantly moving that goalpost, because once you realize that you've been able to accomplish XYZ, next thing you realize that there's something else that you could work on. And there's another area of your life that you want to improve on, or maybe it's being a better father, maybe it's being a better friend, maybe it's being healthier in some way, shape, or form. So I really do believe that healing is all about the journey and less about the actual destination.
Yeah, and I think that we can simplify it that life's about the journey. If life was about the destination, it'd be about death. So if we're really looking at destinations here, the ultimate destination is death. And I was stuck in the cycle of reaching a destination, moving the goalpost, and never celebrating the last thing that I accomplished. And healing, it was the same. When I healed from whatever it was, chronic Lyme disease, traumatic brain injury, I just moved past it. I did a half Ironman and moved past it, launched, and nothing was ever celebrated. So I think that when we slow down and we look at the journey, you talked earlier about being present with Jessica. I think that something that we struggle with the urgency of society, with the stressors, with we're comparing to everybody, keeping up with the Joneses, and what we forget to do is be present in the current moment. So I built a practice of trying to be grateful for what I have now, but still strive for something that I'd like to achieve. And I know that probably resonates with some people, but it's so harder to do in practice.
It really is. And, something someone once told me was that if we're living in the past, we're living in depression. And if we're living in the future, we're living with anxiety, right? Because we're either reminiscing on something that, time is such an abstract concept, because, everything that's in the past is no longer there, right? It's just it's an abstract thing that is now gone. So if we're focusing on it, it's like we're holding on to something that isn't even there anymore.
Yeah.
And when we're so focused on living in the future, we're focused on things that haven't even happened yet. And the anticipation of something happening, which may not even happen that way, because I know that I've dealt with anxiety at different points in my life, and I've felt as though something bad could potentially happen, or have gone through many different scenarios that never ended up transpiring. So I lost so much time in the present thinking about all the things that could potentially happen that never did. And that's where, when I began my healing journey, it really became imperative to me that living in the present, living in the moment, is the most important thing that we have. And that's why now, even to this day, I seek out experiences in which I can really just connect with humans, be present in the moment. Just recently, I went to Stonehenge for the summer solstice, and 30,000 people gathered there to watch the sunrise. And it was just such a beautiful experience. And I just felt so present, at one with the earth, with the people around me, that I was thinking of nothing else other than that moment. And so I think that, that's just something simple that everyone can do to feel better. And that's just to focus on finding opportunities in which they can really be present, whether that's reaching out to people in the community or spending quality time with friends and family, and just really focusing on being there in that moment.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm so happy you had an incredible trip. That sounds absolutely wicked and awesome. One thing you touched on that I want to grow is the process of letting go. I think that for a long time, I thought letting go was giving up, and it's not. I think that being present is also acknowledging truth, whereas when you're not present, you get stuck in the tyranny of how, which my coach calls it, and you can never determine how something's going to happen. You don't have control of the future. We really don't have control of the present, but we definitely don't have control over is what's actually happening. So resisting the truth is something I struggled with a long time. When I was really sick, I would fight against it and be like, this isn't happening. This isn't how I want to live my life. Get in the why me, that almost victim mentality. And letting go isn't giving up. It's understanding that this is happening and it's okay for it to happen right now, and it's not going to happen forever. So something that, again, another practice I really work on is letting go. I have things in my life right now that I wish weren't the case, as we all do. And if I resist them, which I get in the process of doing, I get burnt out, I get aggravated, I become reactive. I actually set up more negative things in my life that occur, and I start to stack it. So letting go is not giving up. It's understanding what the reality is, doing your best to understand that you can control certain things, but you can't control the outcome. So
I was going to say, let me share a Chinese parable with you that my friend shared with me recently that I think will kind of piggybacking on what you said.
Yeah.
So the parable goes like this. There's a Chinese man and he lives on a farm, and one day his only horse runs away. His neighbor comes to him and says, "Oh my goodness, what bad fortune. Your only horse has left your farm." The farmer says, "Maybe." The next day, the horse comes back, but this time there are multiple horses because the horses come back with other horses and they're wild horses. So now instead of having one, he has multiple. The farmer's friend comes to him and his neighbor says, "Oh my, what good fortune. You now have multiple horses." Well, the farmer's response again is, "Maybe." The following day, his son, the farmer's son, is there trying to break in one of the wild horses. He falls off the horse, breaks his leg. His neighbor yet again comes to him and says, "What bad fortune. I don't know what is happening, but now your son's leg is broken. This is terrible." The farmer once again says, "Maybe." And then finally, the next day, the army comes to enlist young gentlemen into the war. The farmer's son's leg was broken, therefore he was unable to go to war. So again, the neighbor comes to him and says, "What good fortune. Your son wasn't enlisted into the war because he broke his leg." And the farmer yet again says, "Maybe." And really, the meaning behind that story is that oftentimes when we're in the situation, when we're in a circumstance, whether it's what you went through with Lyme disease and battling what you had to battle, we don't understand why those things are happening to us. And oftentimes, I think most people, maybe the farmer didn't feel this way. He was very open to the why it was happening. But most of us go into that grieving process. We think, why me? We go through all of the negative loops, right? Not realizing that maybe there's a silver lining at the end of this. And that experience that we're going through is actually meant to teach us something. And it's meant to help us help others who maybe are going through a similar circumstance. So I look at you, Jordan, and I look at what you've gone through and how if you never went through what you went through, you'd never be here now. HatchPath wouldn't be here. And so think of how different your life could have been had you gone through a different experience and had you not experienced that pain.
Absolutely. And would it be too much for me to say that I think we're pretty connected? Because 2 nights ago I was reading Flip Thinking, and that parable is in the book. I read it and I was like, do I interject and say the sun didn't go to war? But it's truly beautiful. Absolutely. I think in the moment, Joe Rogan said this on his podcast, whenever something that he doesn't want to happen happens to him, he says, thank you. And he accepts the growth opportunity. I still struggle to do that, but in hindsight, it's like without anything good in my life came from something challenging. I read a book when I was really sick called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's like the only way out is through. And when you go through, you become stronger and you become more empathetic. And I had a coach on the podcast the other week. His name's Michael. And he said that all of his struggles, he's so grateful for them because empathy became his superpower. He can relate to people across so many different paths of lives because suffering is very similar across whatever situation. But if you don't suffer, you can't empathize. So nobody wants to suffer. But if you get through it, when you grow through it, you can empathize with people going through it, and it actually became his superpower. So I love that. So,
absolutely,
yeah. When you can see people through the lens of having gone through it, it gives you deeper connection, and I feel like that's what happened to me with my story. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about your story, why you're connected with American Heart, and your fitness background and nutrition, and what got you started. So maybe you can give us the short form version. But what is your story?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the fitness industry for many years. I started off just being a very athletic, very um, just physically active individual, even from a young age, playing sports like soccer and volleyball. And then as I got older, I was trying to figure out what my career path would be. And I had a few family members that worked in the healthcare space, but I figured, I couldn't see myself helping those who were sick. What I wanted to do is I wanted to focus on the prevention
Hmm.
and helping people stay healthy. And that's what I essentially ended up doing. And I was able to witness clients that I was working with get off of medication because they were focusing on a healthy lifestyle through fitness, through proper nutrition, and just taking care of themselves overall. And so that to me became really rewarding. And now working with the American Heart Association is so aligned with that. And we're able to raise life-saving, life-changing funds and essentially give people the gift of more time, which
Hmm.
was what I always stressed as a personal trainer and as an individual in the fitness space, was that really, like, we don't know what the future holds.
Hmm.
We don't know how long we have to live, but the best thing that we can do is take care of the bodies that we have and give ourselves the gift of more life every day.
I
And
love that.
so, the research that the American Heart Association is also involved in is really truly giving even infants born with congenital heart defects the gift of more life. So the work that I'm doing and the work that we're doing as an organization is extremely rewarding.
No, that's absolutely incredible. And I think that um, as a society, we're getting more and more aware of the things that we can do to prevent things, or things that we can do to grow, or to change, or to thrive. And we're getting away from dependencies on things like pharmaceuticals or surgical intervention. While they're still beneficial at certain points, there's so many things that we can do individually, which becomes empowering. So I know you're talking to Jessica earlier about like nutrition and movement and stress and sleep. And there's 8 pillars within the American Heart Association, and they're all a behavior that we control. So I absolutely love that. To me, it's an empowering thing, and having somebody in your corner is another thing. But yeah, today we're more empowered than ever to take control of our own health. And thanks to the American Heart Association and other organizations that care, we're spreading this awareness, and hopefully having more people start to take control.
Absolutely. And I mean, the reality is that some things are not preventable.
Yeah.
And so I think the other critical piece and the other critical focus of the American Heart Association is really ensuring that at least one person in each household knows how to perform CPR in the event of an emergency. I know that none of us want to think of that statistic, but unfortunately it does happen to a staggering number of individuals across our country and across the world. So having the knowledge and the tools to be able to save someone's life is just so critical, and that's one of our huge focuses as well. So
Absolutely.
we can do all that we can, and of course we preach prevention, but sometimes things are unavoidable, and so having that knowledge is really key.
Absolutely. Responding in an emergency situation should be taught at every age level. It should be a curriculum in kindergarten all the way through high school and university. And I think that I know Jessica shared with me a story, but it happens far too often that someone's in a critically emergency situation. All the tools are available, and unfortunately, nothing happens because we're just not taught. So I know there are resources available through the American Heart Association. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how to reach them for yourselves, for your community, for your organization, and implement those with the people that you love.
Absolutely. I mean, through our website, there's definitely information. We can drop the link as well. There are definitely resources that are readily available, quick videos that can be watched so that a person knows how to perform hands-only CPR. But yeah, essentially to your point, there are far too many let's say, for example, schools that have AEDs but don't have a plan in place to utilize them, or don't change out the batteries often enough. So that's where the American Heart Association has stepped in. And there's actually legislation that is changing right now as we speak. One of the laws that was passed here in the state of Florida was actually, it's now a requirement for high schoolers who graduate to have CPR training.
I love
So
that.
that's something that the American Heart Association was able to, to put into place and to set into motion. But then also working with all of the schools across the state to ensure that emergency response plans are in place, that AEDs are in every school, and that the individuals that would need to use those AEDs in the event of an emergency know how to use those. So there are definitely some really exciting changes that are currently, in motion, and that's just some of what we do.
No, it's absolutely incredible. And HatchPath, we're grateful to be involved in any capacity with the American Heart Association ever. And that's something that Lauren and I are adamant about, especially with our kids. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, is knowing CPR, understanding how to use the tools at our disposal, making sure that everybody in our care team, whether it's if we have a nanny or family member that's with us with our children, understands how to utilize those tools, and spreading the awareness. So Natasha, thank you so much for being on Transformational Conversations today. And I look forward to continuing to chat with you.
Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.